is the case with the Bills playing a weeknight game. He made it. Well, I should let Sal tell us. Sal, have you made it to Houston?
Yes, a little bit later, I guess, than I anticipated. A lot of times these airports are a lot closer to the hotel. This one's a little bit further, even with a police escort. You know, you go to these big cities around rush hour. You know, it's not the easiest, and then timely, I should say. And then got here, and I'm actually on a nice walk. It's 83 degrees and very little humidity, so it's really nice out here in Houston right now. So, yeah, it made it here. And, you know, talking with you guys now, this is the only game of the season where the Bills are playing outside the Eastern time zone, so an hour behind you guys.
Right. Second Thursday night game, going back to the Miami home game early in the season. We've talked about this many times over the years, but what are the sort of the actual challenges the Bills face having to turn it from Sunday afternoon to not only Thursday night, but travel in between?
Yeah, I asked Sean McDermott in his weekly radio program today if a 24-hour rule after a game turns into a 12-hour rule. He laughed and said, yes, basically it does. You don't have time to really go back and look at everything from the last game like you normally would. They'll go over some film, but it's not like a normal Monday. Monday is really prepping for the next game, whereas usually Monday is kind of looking back at the previous game. You still do a little bit of that, but you got to get ready. And the team actually was on the field doing a little walkthrough on Monday already, starting a game plan for the Houston Texans. And then, of course, on Tuesday, they had a lighter practice. They considered it a walkthrough, even though it was a little bit more of a practice. Today, they did some stuff at the team facility before they got on the plane to head here. And then, as you're right, Mike, I mean, it's different when you're traveling, especially 3 hours, right? I mean, like, this isn't to New York for a Thursday night game, and you have to really adjust. You know, you're going to be in the air. You don't have time to be at the facility and do the things you need. And then, of course, the injury situation comes into play, and that's going to just vary throughout the years on everybody. And honestly, it probably impacts the Houston Texans more than the Bills today because, you know, if, according to John Harris, sideline guy for the Texans, who's a friend of mine, he was on with Zach today, he told me on his show, and then he also said to Zach today that if this game was on Sunday, C.J. Stroud is probably playing. But because it's Thursday night, he couldn't clear concussion protocol in time, and he's already missed a couple games, so it was trending towards that. So that's the challenges that these teams have.
Yeah. Sal, thinking about the time crunch here for both teams, I might guess that through the year, maybe different assistants take turns, or maybe just there's someone in each area of the team that maybe is doing work on Houston, knowing that there's going to be a time crunch, because you don't have the time to do all the normal stuff, but you're still going to want to put a plan together and attack, you know, what you perceive as weaknesses and avoid strengths and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm guessing here that some of that gets done gradually through the previous 10 weeks.
100%. And that's actually true in all cases, Bulldog, but I would think even more so for a Thursday, but even more so for an unfamiliar opponent, right? It's not like you're playing a division team tonight where you've already seen them once. So that absolutely does happen. That's the advanced scouting team. Their responsibility is to look, you know, how many weeks ahead, even maybe the whole season ahead, get some notes on players. And then as the game starts to get closer, you put all that together. And then as soon as Monday comes around, that's how you start to present it to the coaching staff so they can formulate a game plan. So all of that has to be done already. And now, you know, now it's time to just go out there and play. I will say, though, on a Thursday game, you'll hear players say this. Even Josh said this against the Dolphins, even though they know them very well back in week 3. There's not a lot of time to put new stuff in. Like, it's basically you do your stuff, they do their stuff, and whoever's going to be better at it. If you want to put in a wrinkle or two, that's fine. But really, I mean, you got to just get ready to play, and you got to get your body right. You can't – example is the Bills. They're in these 2 walkthroughs, essentially. They don't have time in those walkthroughs to do like that, to put in new wrinkles. They just have to basically get their game plan installed and go play football.
Bills up to -6 at spots on the road here, and that's a lot of respect for them, or a lack of respect for Houston, given all of this, the logistics. And it wasn't like the Bills were crushing everybody. They did have a win, of course, on Sunday. Seems like a lot to me, Sal, with the Thursday night on the road and Houston's defense and everything, lower scoring games with the Texans. The bettors think the Bills are a pretty good favorite here.
I'm guessing that has a lot to do with Stroud. You know, you're playing a backup quarterback. Just remember, though, I mean, Davis Mills has won 2 games in a row, and he's thrown the ball close to 90 times over the last 2 games and like 110 times over the last 3 games. It's crazy. They're not afraid to throw the ball at them, but they're not putting up a lot of points. And this is, I think, more about C.J. Stroud than anything else. Interesting, no, I don't think this has anything to do with the gambling line, but I learned today from John that apparently the Texans have not won a Thursday night game under DeMeco Ryans. So sometimes he's only been there a few years, but I do wonder when a coach has been at a place a while and you have that kind of record, is that because there's something they are doing or not doing, differently that maybe they could be doing to help their team? So really interesting. I just found that really interesting.
So much focus, Sal, on the wide receiver core here for years, if you want it, I guess, but we don't have to really focus on that right now. Obviously, with what happened last Sunday in Keon Coleman being inactive, now we know no Hardman, no Samuel. I've thought, and we talked about this earlier today, and I bet we talked about it with you yesterday or the day before, I feel like Elijah Moore is a Samuel replacement. I'm saying a lot of words here. Really, all I should do is spit it out. What do you think about Keon Coleman getting back in the lineup? Would you bet on it or bet against it?
Bulldog, I'm going to say that I think there's a chance he's inactive again. I don't know. It's a really good question for me, because even if I look at the roster, and you could take a look at, because you laid it out right, Samuel and Hardman are out, but really Hardman really is just a kick returner, punt returner. He kind of doesn't factor. And they did just sign Brandon Codrington back to the practice squad. So that tells me he could very well be elevated to be that guy. Well, then you only get one more elevation, and to me, you're going to do that with Gabe Davis, unless you feel that maybe Gabe has too quick of a turnaround after being off so long, but he was so good for the offense. You elevate Gabe. I don't really know. By the way, elevations won't come out until tomorrow, even though it's the day before a game. Today, the Thursday night game, not till tomorrow. So I just look at the numbers and go, okay, if Moore is in for Samuel and you do elevate Gabe, where is the number? Where do you put Keon Coleman, especially after last week, how functional the offense was? And let's be quite honest. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Tyrell Shavers did everything you would hope Keon Coleman would do for you on Sunday. So I don't know if I would bet for or against it. I think it is pretty much an even money bet here.
Yeah, when we talked about this earlier today, where I arrived was his way back in, Coleman's way back in, is if they're worried about Davis in the quick turnaround. Because I think if he's healthy enough to go again and be elevated, then I think that's Coleman's spot. Shavers is never coming out. That was true before Coleman got benched. Whenever we would talk about the numbers at receiver and Elijah Moore or Curtis Samuel, one or the other sort of taking turns being inactive, be like, well, what about Shavers? Well, he's core special teams, and nobody else in the receiving core does that. So he's pretty much got, he's got a spot written in permanent ink. I think Davis would have to be, worrisome for them in order for Coleman. My view is that's Coleman's way back in.
And let's remember, Khalil Shakir has not practiced this week. We know now the reason is because his wife and him, they had a baby, so congratulations to them, but he hasn't practiced. He's off the injury report, so that means he should be good to go and, at the game and playing in the game. But he has been dealing with the ribs and the ankle. So if you want to say, well, yeah, but you could just have Shakir return punts. We talked about this last week. I don't know if you want him doing that right now. I mean, he clearly was not himself last week. They had one catch for -3 yards, and he clearly wasn't himself. So I think that spot's got to go to Codrington at this point, and then you're just kind of in a numbers crunch right there.
Sal, what is the upside for Shavers? Was Sunday it? You get a big play, you get a couple more catches. It was a career day for him. Is he somebody that you think can keep doing that kind of output?
That might be a lot to ask Mike to keep doing that kind of output. I do think that's the upside, but I wouldn't doubt that he could do that again at some point. I don't think you can expect that on a week-to-week basis, but I do think that that's the kind of receiver he can be, which is he'll be available to make a few catches for you, and then maybe he'll get down the field on a play here or there like he did in that scramble drill, and he scored the touchdown. So maybe it might not be another 40-plus yard touchdown when it happens, but I do think he has the ability to get down the field. He is a fast guy. He doesn't look it. He's a long strider. He's like a 4.4 guy, basically. I went back and looked. I think at either Combine or Pro Day, one was in the 4.3s, one was like low 5.5s. So I'm 4.5s. I'm like, okay. So what do you take there? So he's probably a 4.4 plus guy, right? So that's fine. He's not slow, and I think because he understands the offense and the nuances of it and being available, you're going to get some balls thrown your way, and when you get balls thrown your way, you get opportunity.
How do you like the Bills' chances of handling Houston's edge rushers?
It's going to be tough. They're very, very good. I know Will Anderson's been a little nicked up here or there, but he's fabulous, obviously. They are the number one scoring defense in the NFL, less than 17 points a game. They're the number one yards defense in the NFL, less than 260 a game, I believe it is. They're like number 3 against the run, number 3 against the pass. It's just a really good, fundamentally sound across-the-board defense. They're not going to do a ton of exotic stuff. They're just going to come at you and line up and say, we're better than you, and our guys can handle you one-on-one. Kind of reminds me a lot of the early 2000s Ravens defenses like that, right, where they just beat you up. That's what they do. That's what their pride is, and they have a really fantastic defensive head coach in D'Amico Ryans. So you're going to have to really, be on your P's and Q's. And to answer your question, I like the Bills' tackles, Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. I wouldn't doubt if they get, each of them, has a rep where you say they lost, they got beat. What you have to do is you have to make sure that you win far more than you lose, and give Josh Allen time and try to at least make some ground in the running game and in the passing game. I think you have to try and keep them off balance and not become one-dimensional.
How much do you think that their prowess rushing the passer from the edges could lead to Ty Johnson playing just a tick more? Sal, not that usually we think of pass blocking for that role, and it's picking up a free guy coming through the middle more so than chipping on a defensive end, but that might be called for. If one of these guys, I would expect the Bills to try to just get by with Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins. I'm thinking of a Raiders game a couple of years ago with Max Crosby coming in red hot, and they didn't give Brown any help, and Crosby was a ghost in that game. So I think they'll try to just get by with single blocking them, but they also might want to have just the added insurance if they need it of Ty Johnson out there.
It's a great point, and that is also a way to slow down teams rushing, which is you can leak them out of the backfield. We saw that happen last week with Ty Johnson's catch for a touchdown, and then a little bit later, James Cook's catch for a touchdown. So, you keep them in there. You play a little bit more of that type of, that personnel. Keep your third down back in so they know, hey, he can pass block, but, hey, that guy can also go out for a pass. So we might not want to pin our ears totally back, and that gives Josh Allen a little bit more time. If the Texans, and I suspect they'll do this, if the Texans just say we are going to shut down the run game, that's what the Bills do best, and then if we can do that, you become one-dimensional, we can get after you, that would be the game plan that I would, try if I was D'Amico Ryans. But, if you're the Buffalo Bills, you have to understand that you're going to have to throw the ball a little bit here. You're going to have to, in some capacity, try to throw the ball. I do think this is the kind of game where, fans, I understand, want to go for fourth downs and be aggressive. I understand all that, and there's times and places for it. This might not be that game. This might be the game where you're in the midfield, and it's 4th and 1.5, and you're like, we're just going to punt the ball away and let the backup quarterback try to beat us, and hopefully they'll make 2 mistakes and we make 1 in this game.
I like that you just made the point about, sure you want to establish your run and all that, but one of the keys, I think, we get so enamored of all the numbers and the 6 touchdowns and the 300 yards and the long plays. I think a key element of last week's win over Tampa was that they increased their first down pass rate and they increased their play action rate.
Yep.
And I think both of those things should be in heavy use against this team.
They are without Jalen Petrie. He is a really good player for them. He's kind of an all-everything safety / nickel. He plays in the box. He's their nickel corner. He plays safety. Their backup is Miles Bryant. Remember that guy from New England? Do you guys remember Miles Bryant with the reason why I'm bringing his name up?
No, I can't say I do.
He is the guy that Isaiah McKenzie torched a few years ago. Remember that game where it was just Isaiah McKenzie left and right and down the field?
Yep.
So I'm wondering, with him in the game instead of Petrie, if the Bills feel there's a matchup advantage, they can take advantage of a matchup. And then that's where I go back to, is this an Elijah Moore kind of game where you get him on the field?
Yep.
We'll talk about it some more tomorrow. Sal, thanks for your time. Enjoy your night.
I got one question for you before I go. Can I ask you? What are the chances tonight we go out to dinner somewhere, and I think we're going to do Mexican, me and a few others, Bill Whippert and the radio crew, that we can find the Sabres game on?
Oh, not great.
We did find when we were in Houston for that Super Bowl, there was a game one of the nights we found a pizza place. We ate pizza. All of us ate like 12-inch small pizzas at the bar, and the hockey game was on. I remember that. This is a long time ago.
Is it on a special channel? 7:30.
No, it's just ESPN Plus probably around the country, but MSG locally. So.
I will be able to get it on my phone and just put it in front of me. That's fine. But I always wonder, like, can I just go in and go, hey, there's a hockey game on. Can you put it on ESPN Plus and put it on, you know?
I would love for you to just go to the manager or your server and just be like, where's Calgary Buffalo? How could you guys? I mean, don't you know sports?
I might do that.
Like it's Duke, North Carolina basketball.
Right. There are good college basketball games tonight. You're probably going to find that more likely.
By the way, home here of Houston, the number one team in the country in college basketball right now.
Yes. Alabama, Illinois is tonight, too.